Oh, we don't have a mic, by the way. Sorry, guys.
They lost the three teachers.
Okay. Dr. Ceres Espiritu, 79, died peacefully in the company of her children on May 28, 2019, at her son's home in North Lincoln, Utah, after a long illness. Ceres was born on September 24, 1939, in Lumacra, Quezon, Philippines. She graduated medical school at the University of the Philippines in 1964. She did her residency in pediatrics at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. Ceres became the Associate Director of the Department of Genetics and Child Development, as well as a professor at the Children's Hospital in Michigan. Ceres and her family moved to Port Arthur, Texas in 1975, where she had a successful private practice as a pediatrician for many years. Her husband, Dr. Edgardo Espiritu, was a general surgeon and hand surgeon. Ceres and her husband enjoyed skiing, dancing, playing tennis, and traveling. She loved to garden and knew the scientific names of most plants and trees. Edgardo and Ceres were very active in their church. They raised 3 children, Eddie Espiritu Jr., Joy Packard, and Emily Packard, and were blessed with over 20 beautiful grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Ceres was known to her family and friends as good-natured, kind, and generous. She will be sorely missed. She is survived by her 3 children and their spouses, Belinda, Stan, and David, her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, as well as her 5 siblings, Rosario, Marie, Bert, Tony, and Annie, and their spouses, Vladimir, Jenny, Samuel, Lou, and Ivan.
Hey, I told Eddie, I said, out of all of your kids, whenever I was in junior high school, I had to go first, or at least one of the ones that had to go first, or had to go presentation, so that I have got to get up and do this. And like he said, this is a little bit unusual because this is more like a more relaxed family meeting type of style. So we're just going to be sharing some stories. And so my challenge was, okay, what is something that I can share, maybe that our personal kids don't, or the grandkids don't know about grandma. And then, so I had a hard time condensing in my brain what stories I was going to share. And then I thought, okay, the last almost year that my mom was living with us here in San Antonio, there was one thing that she, and you grandkids probably know what I'm about to say, or anybody that knows her, she loved to do what? What did she love to do the most out of anything? She had her computer in front of her. Genealogy, family history. And you know what? I'm a little bit regretful. This is the part that I didn't really. I mean, there were times that I would stop what I was doing because she was so into it, and she would want to share with me everything that she was learning about. But it was really it was things that were in the 1920s, maybe even before, and there were names that were 4 or 5 names long that she wanted to tell me about her ancestors. And honestly, I just was like, oh, you know what, Mom? That's great. And I just didn't want to really listen to it. But there was one time where she was doing family history, and I was so into it because it was about her. And so that was, of course, way more personal for me. And so I thought I would share what she shared with me. And it was some of the things that actually I've heard. I've heard a lot of stories about her growing up and, how she met Dad and Grandpa. And but some of these, I'm like, oh, I never knew this. And Jose is visiting, and, he asked me something interesting. We're going to a movie 2 days ago, and he said, Emily, do you know why your parents moved to Port Arthur? Why did they move to Port Arthur? And I thought, actually, I don't know. I don't know why they moved to Port Arthur. And so I remembered when she was sharing with me, and I'm so grateful now. I am so grateful now because now we can all log on a family tree and go on there, and boy, did she just go to town. She loaded up pictures and stories and all sorts of things, and as I was going through it, I thought, I am so grateful that she did this. So here is the answer to why she moved, in her own words, to Port Arthur. Okay, she says, in 1966, my husband Eddie decided that though I was getting excellent training in pediatrics, he was not happy with his surgical training at Mercy Hospital. So my dad was going through his training. He says, when they decided to move to Detroit and do our next year of surgical residency and pediatric residency at Wayne State University Medical Center, Eddie finished his residency as the chief surgical resident in a program which was pyramidal. Did I say that right? Pyramidal. Which automatically made him the top surgical resident. Okay, let me move forward. Okay, so the reason why they moved is so they were in Detroit doing some residency, and then she said, at the bottom here, in her words, she says, so Eddie started his surgical practice in Detroit, and she says it was hectic. It was very hectic in the city, and by then we had 3 wonderful children. Eddie Jr. was 8 years old, Joy was 7, and Emily was 4. When we decided Troy, Michigan, and the Detroit areas were not the ideal place to raise our children. So that's what it was, is that they thought, okay, this wasn't the ideal place to move. And so I wish she would have said more, and maybe we can find out by somebody else, you know, the more specific reasons, but this is what she wrote. She said, we decided to move to Port Arthur, Texas then, which was, quote, the city of the year. And she says, we toiled really hard to start a private practice, and so she goes on. So really it was, the reason why they moved was they just didn't want to be in the city. So that was something that she had taught, that she told me, that I just remembered in hindsight whenever you were asking me why. And then the second thing was, okay, so this is interesting. I didn't know any of this about Grandma, but so she's talking about her high school years. Okay, so this is what she said. She said, oh, it's so much wording here. Let me just start. She said, I entered the University of the Philippines High School in Quezon City as a sophomore. She says, I was so shy. Did you know that Grandma was shy? Who would have known that she was shy? I never knew that about her. Okay, she says, I was so shy that my mother came with me and found me a friend. So her mama came with her to high school as a sophomore, okay? She said she did not make it to the college. Okay, hold on. She's talking about a friend that she met. And anyway, so she said she had made it to the honor roll, being second in her whole sophomore class. And then she said, I started making a name for myself, and my self-esteem increased. She said, I studied hard. So she studied hard, right? She said, my friends were then among the most popular girls. And so she goes on, and this is what I did not know about Grandma when she's telling me about this, right? We all know that she was into gardening, and when she was little, she climbed coconut trees, and etc. But she said, so she went to the same high school that her father graduated in, right? So she said, my father graduated from the same high school, and he was popular during this time. This is Grandma. And so she says, here it was. He was in athletics. In fact, his pictures were all over the principal's office, having won several awards in swimming and basketball. He was one of those who first swam the Laguna Bay. So geographically, I'm not sure exactly where that was. So Laguna Bay. So that was her dad. But and she goes on. So his professors were my professors. The principal knew him. The clerk knew him, and I had to keep up with his reputation. And she says, I didn't embarrass my dad though. And then she said that she went on to extracurricular activities. And I did not know this about Grandma. She said, I was in volleyball, and guess what? Baseball. Volleyball and baseball. How many of your grandchildren knew that about Grandma? I had no idea that she played baseball. And then she said she won the Best Director and Best Actress award during her senior year. She was in drama. So that was another one that she shared with me. And then I just wanted to bring in one last one with our conversion story. So we talked a little bit about, you know, their medical career and a little bit about her high school years and how she was athletic. And I just kind of wanted to end with the spiritual side of Grandma. Right? So a lot of you know our conversion story. And but I just wanted to share this one part that I really loved. I love reading back over this when we joined the church, just because it brings back, you know, the memories of a lot of things. But I'm gonna hold it together, and I promised. So this is what I remember. So we grew up rosary almost every night, and boy, that was a struggle because I don't know if some of you have seen the rosary beads. Woo! It takes forever. And so we had everybody around the room, and we just were going through all. You touch a bead, and then you say whatever the prayer is, and then my dad would say it, and we all would have to repeat it, and then we go to the next bead, and then we'd say it, and like, oh my heavens. And so we were on our knees for I don't know how many hours. So this is what she said. She said, as a family, we pray daily before bedtime. In fact, we prayed the Holy Rosary. We know that our Father in heaven answers our prayers. And she says, don't we not receive blessings? Don't we not receive needs that we ask of God? So I thought that was so, what a blessing that, our mom and dad were already in tune with those kinds of spiritual things. And she says, we're challenged by the elders, and this is whenever they're taking discussions, and our Mormon friends, that we can receive answers to our questions by directly asking God. We decided that we were going to do exactly that. 3 days after we started receiving the discussions, we kneeled as a family and started saying the Holy Rosary. She says, I was leading the prayers and sincerely, with earnest heart, started to say the Apostles' Creed. And she says, almost in tears, I started to say, I believe in the Holy Catholic Church. Instead, what came out of my mouth was, I believe in the Mormon Church. And she says, I felt very strongly that conviction. I stopped saying the prayers. My children were stunned and also felt the testimony I just bore. My husband was very much touched that he decided that it was time to ask to get baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And she goes on saying, I remember very well that I also received the inspiration that the church will guide us to becoming an eternal family, that we will be shown the ways. So I go back on this and I think to myself, what a blessing that your grandma, my mom, was so close to the Spirit. And she, if you go through it in more detail, she talks about how she kneels in prayer and she pleads with Heavenly Father to give her the answer if this was the right thing for our family to do. And then in her words, and I'm just going to close with this, sorry I'm taking too long, there's too many. But she said, I prayed really hard to Heavenly Father. It was a big decision, and which I know will have a big impact on our family and the rest of my extended families, which has proven to be true. So if there's anything from these stories, number one, your family history is not bad. Let's do our family histories, right? And just remember some of the stories that your grandma has left. She's left a great legacy of a faith-filled woman that knew how to get direction from her Heavenly Father. And I could say more, but I think I'm going to start from there and turn it over to Joy.
First of all, it's okay that we take long, right? Because we're here to honor Grandma. And that was only 10 minutes, so. As I look at this picture, I notice that this is in our house. And this was the day that she wasn't feeling very good. And if you notice, her lashes. And so I remember her on that day saying, I just don't feel good today. I just don't feel, I just don't feel good. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go take you to use one of my lash credits. And she's like, no, we don't need to do that. I'm good. I said, no. So I got her ready and I took her, and I had to do a wheelchair that day because she wasn't, feeling very well. And she came home, and I remember taking this picture. Selena took it. I can't remember which one of us took it. And as I look at that, she felt so pretty. She just looked in the mirror and was batting her eyes. And I mean, if there was one thing that my mom was, she was completely vain. And that's where I get that from. So I know she's laughing at me, but she was, it was just so sweet because I finally convinced her to get volume. She could get the natural. I'm like, no, you need to get volume. And anyway, ever since then, until she passed, she got volume, and she used all my credits. So I didn't have her credits. She loved it. I loved being able to treat her that. And I just have a bunch of, I was just thinking about what I could share, because a lot of you, like what Teacher Emily said, a lot of you grandkids don't know Grandma that well. You knew the latter part of her years when she wasn't feeling well. But Grandma was a very energetic, very fit. I mean, she was dancing, always doing Jane Fonda, exercising and stuff, and she was super active, very, very active. And I remember going in her room one day, and our house had her room, and then it had part of the room was parquet floor where her and my dad, Grandpa, would practice dancing. And every time I would go in there, she was doing something on ballet bars. And she would tell me, I remember one time she told me, okay, come over here and let's do ballet together. Those of you who know me know I am not limber. I do not do ballet, although I took ballet. But all the girls had their legs straight like this, and mine was always like this in the corner, you know? But my mom would always tell me, like, you have the best stretch ever. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I always believed it. And that was one thing about my mom that I love, is that both her and dad, but I can think of many times. There was a story of when I was, many of you know I played tennis, and I was playing in a tournament. And I remember, I used to think I was like the best tennis player, nobody could beat me, whatever. And I was in 7th grade, and they put me against an 11th grade boy. And I lost. And I remember thinking, I am just not very good. And I remember feeling so defeated that day. And I remember my mom came over and would say, you are the best. She would always tell me like how good I was at everything. And she would say, you are the best tennis player ever. And you need to go out there and just, continue on. And from that moment, I was like, yeah, I'm pretty good, And I mean, it just gave me, she was always like about confidence builder, right? Confidence builder, she was that for sure. And one other thing that I remember too is like, my mom, she was a doctor. Many of you, I don't know if your grandkids realize, she was a pediatrician, and so she was working a lot. But she never, every weekend I remember her making a bunch of food for us, and she would freeze it. And so when we would come home from school, we always knew we had food. And I didn't inherit that from her, but she made like, little pizzas and little just chicken stuff, but she was always like thinking of her kids, so she always had something for us at that time. So, and again, she was busy, but like I had volleyball and I had basketball and I had tennis, and every time at 5:30, my mom was there. I always knew in my head, I never had to worry, is someone going to pick me up? I never had to call her. I never had to tell her, Mom, I'm done at 5:30, because she was always there. And so even though like she was really busy and successful in her career, she was always where she had to be when she was supposed to be. So I always remember that about her. One story about her, one thing too, I don't know if you grandkids noticed that, is I've never in my 50 years of living have ever heard my mother raise her voice. Ever. I don't know if you have, Emily or Eddie, never. Even when she was mad at my dad. And there were plenty of times when my dad would do things where she could for sure get mad. But I remember all growing up thinking, and I would watch her example, and here's her mad. No, that is not good. That's what she would say. And I'm like, that's all you're going to do? Like, that's how she would get mad. And I thought, wow, she was a very calm person, as far as that goes. She would never raise her voice. But yet she was so in control. You know what I mean? So she was like a woman that could control a room, but yet she was super, never raised her voice. And so I try and follow that example. I'm not as good as that as she is, but she was such a great example. But here's a great example. One time we're sitting in church, and as you can think of, we're sitting on the pews, and my brother's sitting next to me. And he's like picking at me, and just like he's doing bugging me, stop, and she's like, stop, and we're all fighting. And then all I remember is all of a sudden you can feel the side of me and Eddie in the inside. We both go, ow, because my mom wouldn't raise her voice, but she would pinch us. And so that's how we got quiet. My mom would pinch us, but she never raised her voice. And there's just a couple more stories. One story I remember as she was staying in our house. I went upstairs, or she told me to come upstairs, and she goes, "Hey, you need to come up here." So I said, "Okay," and I'll be there in just a second. So I walked upstairs, say she did not feel well. But our laundry room was a complete catastrophe. We had towels everywhere, and we just always had parties. And what she did was she folded and cleaned the whole laundry room. I mean, she came in, but here's what it was when I first came in. I came in, and when I came into the room, she had someone's underwear on her head. And she said, "Hi." I'm like, "Okay." She said, "Come with me." And she took me to the laundry room. And I just thought, first of all, I had a really hard time with, the underwear on the head. But that's another thing, by the way, is even though Grandma was very elegant and very, the way she was, she was also very goofy and crazy. And that's where I got that too. But I went in and she had folded, she washed all the loads of laundry, and every single shelf was coordinated, like what Belinda would do. Like it was green, and I was just like, I haven't seen my mom do like that in years. But she just said, "I just know you're just so busy, and I'm up here anyway, and I need to do something." And I remember her saying that, but that was such a special, special moment, because it just makes me think about her, and so, anyway, I'm going to end it with a spiritual one as well, and I'll only share it in this room. I don't really share the story, because it's super special to me. But as we know, my mother was a very spiritual person. She was probably the most spiritual one in our whole family. Like it was said, she was the one that helped us to find the church. She was very patient, very humble, and very close to the Lord. And I remember, all growing up, she was even that way when we were Catholic. She was that way when we were members of the church. But I was so grateful that we were able to be there when she was passing, because that whole week before was so busy for us. We had Selena graduating, we were moving, we were doing all these things, and I was just like, I just hope she can hold on, And I remember asking the nurse that we hired, like on a Friday, I said, "Julie, can you ask my mom, is she waiting for daughters?" And my mom couldn't talk anymore. And so she basically said, if you bat your eyes or nod your head up and down, that means yes. And so this was like on a Saturday evening, and she videoed it for me, and she basically waited, she would nod her head like this, as she was waiting for us. And so I said, okay, and so we had a flight to come up on Monday, and then, she basically, she passed the next morning. But during those last moments with her, even when she couldn't speak, she was speaking with her expression, with her body language, and how she was. And even to the very last moment, those of you who know Grandma, she was so into her skincare and into her face, I don't care if it was 1 o'clock in the morning, she was going to wash her face, And that's why she had this beautiful skin. And so the very last moments, we came in Monday morning at 7:30 we were in a hotel, and Eddie said, "Hey, you better go ahead and come back." And we went back into Mom's room, and I looked at her, and I don't know if you guys remember me saying this, do you guys? And I said, "Mom, you're glowing. You're glowing." And, we were just kind of stroking her skin and telling her how beautiful she was. I remember telling her, "Mom," I had my hand on her head, and I said, you still look so beautiful. Your skincare is doing everything you wanted it to do." And I remember looking back at the nurse and then telling her the story. And all of a sudden, my mom's whole face just glowed for just a split 20 seconds maybe. And then right after that, she passed. I saw her take her last breath. And I was like, I felt so grateful to be able to be there, because she's such a beautiful woman, right? And even to the very last moment, she just portrayed her beauty in some way. And it was just like one last moment that you could see my mother in that kind of light, So, anyway, Grandma was beautiful, elegant, funny, giddy, goofy, yet spiritual, beautiful, and one of the most incredible people that we've ever known. So, there were many more stories that we could share, of course, but those are some of the things that I would like my children to know, even if it's the one thing that you learn, I bet none of you have ever heard Grandma raise your voice, right? And she just was such an example of all of us to follow in so many ways, so. Honey?
I think I'm the only one that heard her raise her voice.
But I will say, when you brought up the story, and I'll end with this, even when she was super mad at Stan,
So as a family, and my kids can attest, I got that from my mom too. I never raised money. Learned a lot about grandma's back. There's so much that we can't share. It would just take too long about how her and my dad came from poverty to becoming successful physicians and coming here and finding the church. And so they're credited with our family finding the gospel. But I told my mom many times, I may not make it to the celestial kingdom because of her. Because some of you have heard this story, but growing up in Southeast Texas, when we moved from Detroit, where we were born, to Southeast Texas, what is the thing in Southeast Texas in terms of athletics? If you're not on a football team, pretty much it's very hard to get respect. And with all due respect for those of you who were the men. But so I fought my mom and dad for years and years and years since I was a little kid. Please let me play football. Please let me play football. And they would never let me do it because they saw so many injuries. And so finally, and they wouldn't let us go to public school. Joy, Emily, and I went to a private school in Nederland called Sycamore because they just wouldn't want us to go to private. So I begged her, please, I want to make your friends. I want to stay here. So finally, when I was going to go into 9th grade, she let us go to C.O. Wilson Junior High, C.O. Wilson Junior High in Nederland, and let me play football. So, and so there's a spiraling effect here for Austin, David, and Brandon, which I'll tell you about because the reason you guys got to play is what I'm about to tell you. Okay. So anyway, so she let me play football, but transitioning from Sycamore, little private school, to public school in Southeast Texas, one of the challenges I had to deal with that some of you don't know about, that Emily and Joy didn't have to deal with, was I had to go through a lot of racism when I was first going to public school. And it was very intense. Every day I was called multiple things by so many people, and I'd come home very depressed. And I thought being on the football team would change that, and it didn't. It was just as bad on the football team. I'd go for a long pass. I was a receiver. I'd go for a long pass and catch like a 70-yard pass, and I'd come back to the huddle all happy about it, and the first thing the quarterback says is, good catch, and said something racist to me. So every day I'd come home, and I was depressed. I was really down about it. It was a really hard transition year for me in 9th grade. Well, anyway, about halfway through the football season of 9th grade, Grandma, in her selfless way, said, my son's birthday is coming up, and I want to throw him a surprise party, and I'm going to invite all the football team to the party. And what she didn't know is the majority of the team were the ones giving me the hardest time at school. And I would have never voluntarily invited them to a party if I were the one planning it. The other thing that I had to deal with, and not so much Joy and Emily, I had to deal with the racism and the fact that our family was the wealthy family, because they just weren't used to having an Asian in their school and mom and dad both doctors. So I was getting a lot of hard time about that as well. But so Grandma arranged in typical Grandma style to print up a birthday invitation to a surprise party for Eddie Jr. and somehow got someone to put the invitations in everyone's helmet on the team. And she didn't know that the trainers were part of the team. So she didn't invite the trainers. So the trainers got upset in that. So that's a whole other story. And the coaches didn't get invited, so they were all mad. But anyway, so Grandma, the day of my birthday party, arranged, I suspected something going on. I heard people in practice talking, and I suspected she was doing something. So on the day of this party, she arranged to take me on an errand while Joy and Emily and everybody else at home, I don't know who was setting up actually, set up the party. So when I came home, there was the whole football team, everyone was having fun. Everyone, of course, was nice to me that day. But here's the point of the story. Grandma went through all of this planning for her son. She just loved her son so much. Didn't realize how much I was so upset at her about it. Because most of that people at that party, I really just, I did not want to be around. But at the end of the party, this is what I want to tell you kids. Instead of going up to her like we taught our kids all their lives to say thank you and be grateful, I just lit into Grandma after that party. Why did you do that to me? I can't believe you did that to me. All these kids are the ones making fun of me at school. Why would you do that to me? And I made her feel really, really bad at the end of that party. And you know what she did? She didn't say anything to me. She didn't say a word. This ungrateful son, who she just went through all of that trouble to plan this elaborate party for, instead of saying thank you and showing how much I appreciated her, she just didn't say anything. And you know, years later, it took me years later I looked back and I realized that was the defining quality of Grandma, is she just loved us that much and would do anything for us. Now, Grandma wasn't perfect and Grandpa wasn't perfect. You guys all know that. They had their quirks and all the things we had to deal with when they were alive. But I look back on that time, and since that time, since I was a little baby, but that was one of my first memories of Grandma. I don't know why, but it wasn't until I was in elementary and junior high I had more vivid memories of her. But she always bent over backwards for me and for Joy and Emily and the kids and the grandkids and great grandkids. Now, she may not have been the Uncle Bertie type grandparent, which we love Uncle Bertie and Sarah, you know, how they are with the kids and Aunt Nancy. But they had their own unique way of showing their love. But one of the ways that they showed their love is they just love their kids, they love their grandkids, they love their great grandkids. So because I didn't get to play football growing up, in Southeast Texas, pretty much if you're not on the football team, there's not much respect. If you're on the tennis team, there's just not. That was me. I was on the tennis team. Not much respect. Teacher Fred, Teacher Chris, Teacher Jose all played basketball, so they had some respect. But I didn't have much respect. So I told her, I will not get into the celestial kingdom, Mom, because I'm never going to forgive you for not letting me play football. So if I don't get in, it's your fault. So anyway, I forced Joy and Sam to let their boys play. I don't know if you guys remember that. I made them sign the permission slip for Brandon, and then of course David and Austin got to play too, Preston, and then Dallin, of course. We lived through Dallin. Dallin was me. Those of you who know him, he's kind of the football player in our family. So anyway, one of my favorite stories of Grandma, and I could tell so many more, but she loved all of us so much. She still does. Everybody here watching right now, you know I'm Grandpa, I'm sure they are. Last thing I want to say. Tita Belinda and our kids had the special privilege during the last several weeks of Grandma's life, which was from David and Melissa's wedding to when she came to Utah. That was February of this year. She didn't start really going downhill until middle of April. Okay. For those of you who don't know, she passed away from kidney failure. Ultimately, that was what it was, and then other complications. But her kidneys just shut down. And rather than going to do anything to prevent her life, to lengthen her life, she just said, I'm just going to let it take its course. And it's hard for me to look at pictures from February this year at David and Melissa's wedding to where she was when she passed away. It was like night and day. She looked so different. Especially the last 4 weeks of her life. She just withered away so quickly. But here's what I wanted to share with all of you, especially the grandkids and great-grandkids. The last few weeks of her life, the veil in her room was very, very thin. Very, very thin. Multiple times, my dad came to visit her during the last few weeks of her life. Multiple times, her mom and dad came to visit her. And many other people came that she didn't tell us who they were, but she would just say there's lots of people here right now. So we're in the room, and Tita Belinda would feel them there. So I'm not as sad right now about her being gone because I saw how much pain she was in the last few weeks and days of her life. And I knew how anxious she was to be reunited with Dad. And although we miss her, and I realized it may be 30 or 40 years before I see them again, I'm just very glad I know they're reunited. Here's my testimony to all of you guys. The week she passed away on Tuesday morning, Saturday of that week, Tita Belinda and I got to go to the temple. And she can share this if she wants. But she had a very, very special experience in the temple with Grandma and Sam's baby who passed away, and our daughter who passed away. Grandma looked about in her 30s. But there was no doubt in my mind that she was on the other side of the veil, reunited with all of our loved ones and Daddy and Grandpa, and that the plan of salvation is true. And that's the reason why I didn't have as hard of a time when she passed, although it was very sad, because I know exactly where she went and where she is right now. And it's my testimony to all of you. I'm going to just share that, is that I know that the gospel is true, the plan of salvation is true, the Savior's atonement made it possible for her to still be living right now. And Dallin, I'll share this. For those of you who had a chance to call her the last few days before she died, we appreciate that. It really lit up her face. And I know not everyone could. But Christina, just so those of you who don't know, was the last grandchild to talk to her, literally a few minutes before she passed. And she was the missionary in the family coming home. And Dallin was the only grandkid in the room when she passed. She was the missionary for about a week. And she was proud of all of the grandkids. She loved you guys so much, and all of the great grandkids. And the Packer family and all of you in us over the years, and all the in-laws. But I just want you guys to know, Grandma left a great legacy. There's so much we can learn from her life. Again, she wasn't perfect, but she did love us all deeply. And I appreciate from our family all that all of you did for her when she was alive. I just want you guys to know that, because each and every one of you did something for her, or served her in a certain way, or brought her happiness and joy at times of her life. And we want you to know how much we appreciate that. Now, I think what we're going to do now is have the grandkids sing a special number. And then after that, what we're going to do, and you don't have to do it if you don't want to. We'll keep this as short as you want. But if you want to share a 2 or 3 minute memory of Grandma, we'd be happy to have you come. Stan, David, and Tita Jose would actually like you to share. Now, real quick, Tita Jose, the reason it's special that he's here. How many of you guys know Tita Chris, Tita Fred? You guys know who they are, right? Well, during the time that they joined the church, Tita Jose joined the church. And Tita Jose's parents were also physicians. We used to live next door to them in Port Arthur. And when Tita Jose joined the church, much like Tita Chris and Tita Fred had to leave their house. Their parents said, you guys gotta go. And Tita Jose and Tita Chris and Tita Fred lived with us before they went on their missions. So he has some special memories of my parents that we'll have him keep it to 3 minutes when it's his turn. Okay. So anyway, so we'll have a special number. Anyone who wants to share a 2 3 minute memory about Grandma is free to do so. We don't have to go long. Then we're going to end with a special slideshow, and then we're going to ask Blake if he give us a closing prayer. And we'll do a closing hymn. God be with you till we meet again. What do you want? Oh, she wants to do, I know that my Redeemer lives. So we'll do that, and then closing prayer by the way. But we'll have the grandkids do the number now. That was Grandma's one of her favorite songs by way of my birthday.
I have a few, so please allow me, because I'm the favorite daughter of all, so. I'm the only one. It's always a joke, because she always told me her favorite daughter was because he was the favorite son. Anyway, definitely, there were some good times, even when she was suffering. But some of the things that I remember that was funny was she had, started hallucinating, doing things. I got a phone call. I worked full time, and in my office, I got a call from Mom, and I said, "Mom, is everything okay?" And at that time, Emily and Joy were visiting. This was earlier, that time that she was sick, and she says, "Melinda, there's someone in my room who's going to murder me. They've got a gun." And I'm going, "Mom, who is in your room?" She goes, just please help me. And then she hung up, and I said, so I texted these three. I said, "Who's watching Mom?" She just texted me, and she said that someone is trying to kill her. And these two were like, "Oh, it's Eddie watching her because we're running errands." And Eddie texted me a few minutes later, about 2 minutes later, and she goes, "She told us it was you who was trying to kill her." And I'm going, "Huh?" And then she told me the story when she came home, that she says, "I saw you from the corner of that, and she actually told me, she goes, "And you look like this, like 007 trying to kill her." And I said, "Okay, Mom." The other story that I wanted to share was, I didn't realize how hard it would be to watch her go downhill. But we would, I don't watch TV, I hardly watch TV, but because she wanted me to, we would watch Tagalog movies together. And of course I understand Tagalog, so she would sit by, a lot of times she would say, even though I was so busy, because I get home from work, I have to cook, and I have to do, the chores, and do laundry and stuff, but I took the time and I said, no, this is more important. So I would sit by her, and Tagalog movies are really drawn out. Like what could be a 10-minute scene is like 30 minutes in Tagalog. I mean, it's just long. But I took the time to sit down with her, and I remember one time the nurse came in, and I sat by her. Mom, as you very know, not only was she elegant, she was also very poised. I have never seen her ruffled. Like Joy and Emily said, she was pretty calm. But that day, I remember her telling the nurse, and I was right there, sitting right there, and I still remember her. And she goes, "I've done this. I've been a doctor for so long." But she said, "Nothing could have prepared me for what I am going through right now." She said, and the nurse says, "Well, what is that you're trying to say?" She goes, "I have never been in so much pain like I have been. I did not anticipate the pain that I'm feeling right now." And none of us, see, I don't think Joy, Emily, Eddie, and I even knew that she was in pain. A lot of times, she would take medication and she would just not say anything. But I didn't realize how much pain she was in. And then she said, the other one, which I had never seen her, because like I said, she was so poised, never really was afraid of anything. She said, "I am so scared of dying." And this was more evident the more that she was going downhill. There were days she would actually ask me to stay with her, and she would plead and beg me, "Please don't leave." I am so scared. And I remember holding her hand. This is, like I said, it was so hard to watch her because this was a woman who was so strong. And yet, during her last days, she was very vulnerable. I'd never seen that side of her. But it was so good to see that, oh, she has a vulnerable side. But anyway, I remember holding her hand, and I remember her just not letting go. And even during her last days, it was so fun to watch her. I remember when Sam and Mike called, she could not even talk anymore. The minute she heard their voices, she literally sat up. And I just thought, oh wow, she's reacting. She's reacting. She had not spoken a word. She had not done anything anymore at that point, about a week before she passed away. And then right the day before these two sisters came home, Julie told me, the nurse, the night, every morning I come down and I ask Julie, the CNA, the certified nurse assistant, I said, how was she last night? Did she sleep? You know? And she said, oh, last night she was actually really happy. I said, well, how could you tell? She's not moving anymore. She goes, I could tell from her eyes. And then she said, hey, I want you to reserve your energy because your daughters are coming tomorrow. She giggled. And like I said, she hadn't even spoken or said a word or done anything. It's only her eyes. A lot of times when she's in pain, we would ask her, do you want more medication? And she would blink, and that means yes. But other than that, she had not moved. But the excitement she felt when these two were coming home, it's so obvious that she loved her children so much, and she loved all of us so much. The last thing I wanted to share with you is that, as Eddie said, the veil is so thin. That one time I was sitting on the bed and I was talking to her, and she was in between lucidity. There were times she was there and sometimes she wasn't there. Then all of a sudden she went like this. And I said, Mom, what are you doing? And she goes, there's stairs. And I said, what kind of stairs? She goes, they're floating. The stairs are floating and there's clouds around it. And I said, who's by the stairs? And she goes, Dad. Dad's beckoning me to come. And I said, well, Mom. And at that point she was so much in pain. I said, go, Mom, go to him. And she goes, I don't know how to do that, Belinda. I don't know how to do that. And she was begging me. She goes, I want to go, but I don't know how to do that. I said, well, I don't know, Mom, but maybe you can ask him. And then she said, there's a little kid by him. And I said, who is it? She said, Tristan. But remember, she had never even met Tristan. Tristan passed away 5 weeks and she wanted it and was already sick by then. She'd never seen Sam's little baby. And then I asked her, how old is he? How old is Tristan? And she said, he's 3 years old. What was interesting is Mom didn't know that day was Tristan's 3rd birthday. So I knew that she knew that was her great-grandchild. I knew that life after here does exist. And I know that Heavenly Father loves us so much. Growing up, Mom loved us, each of you guys. You may not know it, but she knows me. She knows it's funny, she knows the birthdays even. There were so many things about her that were great. And I'm so grateful to have had the chance to know her as a person, to know her as a mother-in-law, and to know her as a spiritual giant that she is. And I know for a fact that there is life after this is over. I know that. That's all.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about how persuasive my mother-in-law was. I can't say that, like Belinda says she's the favorite daughter-in-law, I cannot claim to be the favorite son-in-law. Not gonna lie, she and I occasionally butted heads, purely on medical issues. And I always knew that she had this deep respect and love for her family and her in-laws, her sons and daughters. She was an amazingly persuasive person. I didn't realize it, and she just kind of swooped me in. And next thing you know, I'm falling in love with her daughter. And she and my mother were concocting a plan. There was a conspiracy that they got together and created an ending that was perfect. And it turned out to be perfect. And they knew it's best for Stan. And they two are much more alike than any of us would have ever imagined. Different in many ways, but some of the main issues there are very similar, amazingly. And they created an environment and an ambient that allowed a beautiful relationship to be nurtured, and one that is a forever relationship. And from that, she had 8 grandchildren, 7 great-grandchildren. I remember another persuasive moment, and she didn't even mean to be persuasive. Most of you don't realize that Grandma used both sides of her brain. Left side, all calculated and scientific and objective. And the right side, all creative. She was so good at cake decorating. In fact, she was so good at cake decorating, she would make these roses. And she showed me later after this how it was done. But before I knew that she made roses, I thought they were store-bought roses. Like you buy them in some rose factory makes them perfectly. But no, Grandma makes it with this thing that she squeezes, and the tip of it causes a leaflet to come out, and she puts it on a stick, and then she puts the next leaflet and the next leaflet. About 100 of them finally make this beautiful rose that hardens almost like hard rock candy. Well, then they had to hang upside down and dry. I didn't know about all this process. I didn't know that it was so hard to make roses and that you use those roses after they hung upside down for 24 hours to dry to put on the top of a beautiful cake. All I know is Packer, typical boy that meanders through the kitchen and sees this very tasty-looking rose that was bought at Walmart for sure. And I just thought, that's pretty nice. Silently ate a piece of candy that probably cost somebody a nickel. I didn't have any reservations about eating one of those. It was like a candy decoration on top of a birthday cake. It was kind of crunchy. I feel like I need some crunch in my life right now. So I got some crunch in my life, and about a few hours later, I hear someone say, I'm missing a rose. I'm missing a rose. And she looked all around the rose. I was sheepishly in the corner. There's a little morsel still on my face. And she said, Stan, do you know where that rose went? And I went, it was so persuasive. It was so alluring. It was a perfect little candy rose. I couldn't help it. I'm sorry, Mom, I ate it. You what? You ate the rose? It's for decorative purposes. Excuse me, decorative purposes only. I said porpoise. No, she said probably said decorative. She drew me into the spiritual family. She's one of the biggest reasons that made that whole family so beautiful, so attractive, that allowed me to meet my bride, my lovely one in my life. And I'll tell you one more funny story, and then I'm going to tell you, not funny, but a sweet story, about how persuasive she was. Again, this was after she was already sick, and after she and I had a little disagreement on an issue. She was living with Eddie and Belinda up there, which I think there's providence involved there that allowed her to spend time with her son and daughter-in-law that she had a chance to do. And I went up there to just kind of chip in and help out. And to spend a little bit of time with her at this trying moment, to try to give Eddie and Belinda a little bit of relief. And at one moment, Eddie was off working and Belinda was off working and the kids were doing good. It was I taking care of my sweet mother-in-law, and she needs some sunshine. So, Mom, you want to go for a walk? And she said, yes. I was bonding with her like never before. I was having a sweet, precious bonding moment that I hadn't really had much of a chance to do. I didn't feel like this was precious to me. And I wheeled her out, going down the front steps of the house. And then wheeled her around into the slanted driveway, where in the backdrop was Mount Timpanogos, snow-capped, a few clouds in the blue sky, and a gentle spring breeze. It was so beautiful. The sun just gently ready to set in the early afternoon, late afternoon. And it was 68 degrees outside, perfect. And the sun just gently bearing down, not too uncomfortably, but just that warm sun on a little brisk day. It was just exactly what I knew she wanted to feel. And she just sat there in her wheelchair and just looked up and felt that sun. And I just sat there on concrete, with my hand up here on the rail of the wheelchair, my eyes closed, and just no words, just a magic moment. When a car drove by, and she said, "Hey!" And it caught my attention. The driver looks over and sees my attention like this. She said, "Help me!" I looked back at the driver looked at me. He was over, he was talking to his wife. And they drove a little bit more. She said, "Help me, I'm serious!" I looked back, and we talked about her, she's pretty persuasive. I'm telling you, she's persuasive. I really thought, no, that's some funny looking, kind of fat, middle-aged white guy without his Asian mother-in-law problem. They were driving too quick, and so they got away with it. Then I said, that was a close one. The couple starts walking down. They were driving. They were walking with their little slow children down the same path, and she immediately got a head start on this one and said, "Hey! Help me! I'm not kidding! I'm serious!" She just kept. And they were just looking and looking at me, and I'm going, she really got me back. All the times that I frustrated her, she really got me back. I mean, can you imagine how I felt? Fortunately, she did it the very next day to her only daughter, to her only family member that was with her at the time, Joy, my wife. "Help me! I don't know her! Save me!" And those drivers were almost completely persuaded to call the police. We got to get She was flagging them down. She just took initiative. she was credible. She was so, I'm serious. So, Mom was very credible. She carried authority and her voice. She was just very influential. And she also did that same trick to the nurse, who she loved, and then forgot who she was. But those are happy, sad moments. But I secretly think that maybe deep down inside she was gouch. And along that line, this is near a little story that is a little shorter than that, but I had offended her. Not many people offended her, but I did, and I regretted that. I did that also with my own mother, except my own mother I think was so offended, but I did something offensive when I learned that she was dying. And Eddie, what you said reminded me of me. When I learned that my own mother was dying, I was angry at her, and I lashed out. I didn't even realize what I was doing until I'd done it, and then later on I apologized for it. And maybe there was some grief, and that was my way to express it. I'm not proud of that, but that was what happened. And, I'm sure she didn't really like that situation, and neither did I. But how did she handle that? I'm not here to confession thing, but I'm just here to talk about how mature and how sweet she handled that situation. Because when I went to Eddie Melinda's house to help out, she recognized that I was there for no other reason but to help people that I loved, including her. No words except, come here, Stein. Lay down beside me. And I lay down and I buried my head in her arm and shoulder for hours. I held her hand silently, nodded off, slept a few times, and she held my hand, and she wanted to feel comfort. But she looked down at me when she said, come over here and lie down beside me. I want some company. And she looked at me, and I saw her eyes and her smile. And what she said to me, without words, without specific words on the matter, was, I love you, I forgive you for making me angry. I hope you forgive me. And I'm your friend. Come and lie down beside me. I hope one day that same kind of thing might happen with the Savior. I really see that. That was a very Christ-like thing for her to do. Is to, with a glance and a smile, say, come and lie down beside me. We're friends. And it was like everything in the past was gone, at least negative. One time she said, I love you, Stan. I don't like you. At least not right now. She was very open with me. I kind of appreciated that. I love you. I do not like you right now. But right then, she liked me right now. She liked me. She wanted me to be next to her. And I felt like I was in the arms of someone who was being like the Savior. He was very forgiving and loving me with a glance and a smile. And that was the moment of resolution that I had with her. The one that I will always remember. That was the closure that I had with her. And those are the stories about how persuasive grandma was. I'm the waiter.
So, since I'm the youngest grandkid, I don't have a bunch of memories of grandma, but the earliest I do remember was every time grandma was she'd always, whenever I talked to her, she'd be like, okay, now sing for me. She'd even ask me if I wanted to. She'd just be like, sing for me. And I'm like,
My life intersected with Ceres' life at a strange time, and the affairs of the Packard family. So, I was in law school and I married Emily. And before I married Emily, I had developed this rich beginning of a relationship with Ceres, as many of you have had. Mine was no less rich. Real. Now Stan's had higher highs and lower lows. Instead, I think our average is about the same. And I really mean that. When Stan would call, Ceres would literally jump up and down with excitement. And it wasn't because he was bringing the kids. It was because Stan was coming. She loved Stan. She loved Stan. And this was probably within 6 months of a little spat that she would have had with Stan. That never stopped. And I didn't have arguments with Ceres. I think the closest thing I had with an argument with Ceres was philosophical. I tried to pose a hypothetical. I said, either God doesn't exist or he's okay with what's going on in the earth, because he could stop it. Either he doesn't exist, or he exists with all of the horror and terror on the earth. And before I could even make my last statement, Blake can imitate it perfectly, but he does exist. I'm like, well, yes, he does. But I'm making a point. And she goes, he does exist. I'm like, you just stole my thunder. Never pose a counterfactual hypothetical to Ceres, because she would not play that game. It wasn't because she wasn't capable of suspending in her mind hypotheticals. She was perfect. She's a scientist. They create hypotheses and bombard them with evidence. She knows all about that. She taught genetics at the University of Michigan. She knows science. She just did not want to play science with God. So I love that about her. That was about, but I really, let me tell you about this intersection, okay? So my mom was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease when I was in my second year of law school. And Emily was pregnant with our first child, Kara. And I lost my dear mother, and I got Ceres. And in no way Ceres could have replaced Sarah. But if there was any woman on the planet that could have filled a little bit of that void, it would have been Ceres. Because let me just tell you this, and I told you this in the beginning. Well, Dan pretty much told it. He told it this way. Sarah Packard, she wasn't schooled in the ways of raising large families. She was she grew up as a country girl, poor in her family. And she wanted to have a large family. She married Bernie knowing what was going to happen. I think he asked her, do you want a small, medium, or large family? She said, what do you mean? She says, small 5, medium 10, large 15. She was like, oh, I don't know. Extra small? How about large? So, but one thing that Sarah, my mom and the grandmother of many of you guys here, and y'all know Aunt Sarah, is she discovered that when she had a child, she loved that child more than anything she's ever loved in this world. Or at least as much as anything. Maybe her husband. But it's just brand new love. And then another child came. And guess what? There was just as much love available for that second child. That there was no competition, that there was no way that love that she had for that first child in any way diminished the love that was available for the next child. And then it happened 13 times. But wait, it didn't just stop there. More people started coming. Shane Cameron and Ruby, whose name was changed to Deborah. She lived with us for a decade. And about 20 people we listed on that board who lived with us for at least a week. Now, that wonderful Sarah Packard, whose love was abundant, like our Heavenly Father, like God. Like I said, I give account of that. If God does exist, He's the most abundant God imaginable. He's not scares God. That's the only explanation for why we would have to be going through life like this. Because he's got something a whole lot better. Either he doesn't exist, or he's quite a bit better than we can imagine. That's what I was trying to express to Ceres. And she was right in saying, don't play that. He doesn't. That's fair. But what I'm saying is this abundant love that Sarah so perfectly embodied was an expression of the love of God. It had to be. And then along comes Ceres. And like my mother had to leave. And like at the exact year, I have the grandmother of Kara there, the whole my little kids saying, hey, you still got a grandma, and I'll be there. And I have just as much abundant love as Sarah did. I've never seen anybody like it. There's a reason Jose is here today. And it's not because Jose loves every person in the world, even though Jose really does. You should have seen him at church. But really the real reason he's here is because Ceres loved Jose. And Eddie. And there are so many people like Fred and Chris and James and Jonathan and all the people whose lives were impacted by their greatness. I mean, the ripple effect was on and on. And it's because of her abundant love. And when you guys stood up and said, I can't help falling in love with you, there's an army of people who can sing that. And I'm one of them. I can't say anything more. Thanks.
My dad's been teasing me because he always taught me better than to read off my phone or read off when I'm speaking. But one of the things Grandma always encouraged, and all of her grandkids, I feel like, was developing your talents. And one of mine has always been to be a writer. When I was 9 years old, I came to Grandma and I said, Grandma, I think I'm going to be a writer. And being a doctor, I think she was a little bit like, you're the one who looks like me. Why do you do that? But after she was convincing me that, she wasn't very persuasive, like the just said. But after that, she said, okay, what do you need to do in order to be a writer? And I'm 9. I don't know. And she said, okay, I want you to get a pen, and you're going to write me a story. And Mom would like to take credit for this, but Grandma was the first person I ever wrote a story for. And it was 3 lines. I think it said, I can't remember the exact story now. I have it in my journal. But I remember one of the lines, I think it was there was a little girl named Sam. She had a bunny, and she fed it carrots, and it died. It was something really dumb like that. And I read it to Grandma, and I remember, looking back on it, it was really dumb. But Grandma was on the phone with me, and I remember she told me, you are going to be a writer. And so I wanted to read, I'll try not to read too much of it, but something that I wrote for Grandma. I wrote, a decade ago, we surprised my grandparents with a party for their 47th anniversary. About 2009, summer 2009. The theme was legacy. And we wrote, I have many memories of my grandma. Every time I go over to her house growing up, she told me stories. Where she came from, how she raised my dad, how she learned to cook. She taught me to cook. She talked about everyone else's legacy growing up. And I remember her dad's legacy, everyone else's. And over recent months, we bonded over a lot of shared history. I shared hours in her room talking about the history of Jose Rizal, one of the Filipino heroes. And World War II stories about her grandparents and her parents. But today, I want to talk about Grandma's legacy and what she did for me. Everyone always says that Grandma and I look exactly alike. I don't think that's true. I think Grandma was a lot skinnier. She danced, and the truth is, I think I could spend my whole life living and still not be like Grandma always told me to slow down when I talked. I think I was just trying to keep up with her, I really do. Because that's the kind of person who Grandma was. She was always ahead of her. She was a genius. She was articulate, and she helped all of her siblings come here to America. Her and my grandpa were a lot of the reason everyone came. And she encouraged me to chase after my dreams, but who someone is doesn't just come down to what they said or even what their attributes are. I really do believe that. I think Grandma's legacy was in the way she treated people and in her family. She made my dad banana flambe. Every time my dad would come, she knew exactly what my dad liked, what he wanted. She knew all the treats that every single grandkid liked. Her and Grandpa would go to the store and they would say, we're gonna buy Oreos for Jules. We're gonna buy Cocoa Puffs for Aaron. We're gonna buy this for this person. And she knew exactly, like she was on point with that. And I always remember she would giggle when I told her story, and she would ask us to sing her, just like Kay said. She was the kind of grandma who I remember I was on the phone with her when I was about to graduate from high school, and I made a joke about Grandpa and her coming for my graduation. And I heard Grandpa in the background go, Utah, it's cold up there. I said, it's June, Grandpa. But Grandma was the one who bought the tickets and still came. And she loved arts, culture, paella from Spain. She told me to go try it. And bad rom-com movies. She had terrible movies. And some of you know, Grandma was a very upbeat, positive person. But she did, like my parents talked about, it was really hard for me to watch her the last couple of months. Because, we were both in a lot of pain. I was in pain watching her in pain. And I remember, but it was a good opportunity for me. Because at that point, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what is Grandma's legacy? If somebody's legacy is not just what I can say about them, I want to actually know Grandma. And so I would come and I would ask her questions. But one day, I remember coming into her room, and I was asking her about family history or something. And Grandma could tell I was feeling really off. She could sense, I don't know, I was just having a really tough day. I don't remember exactly what was going on. But I remember Grandma looked right at me and she said, what's wrong? Like, why are you sad? And I was like, Grandma, and I don't know, I'm usually fairly good about trying to keep a sense of what people are feeling but for whatever reason, I just remember feeling like I should open up to Grandma. So I was like, Grandma, I think I'm mad. I think I'm mad at God a little bit because he took something that was supposed to be my legacy and he took it away. And Grandma, and I thought she was going to scold me. And I was like, I think I'm mad, and I think I don't know what to say. I don't even know if I have this faith that everyone says I'm supposed to have. And Grandma looked right at me and she's like, I don't either. And I was like, really? she's like, Sammy, when your grandpa died, this is a side I've never seen from Grandma before. She just said, when your grandpa died, I had no idea what it meant to love other people as deeply as you do until I lost somebody. And I'm like, how do you do this, Grandma? I lost Grandpa and Tristan within 6 months of each other. I don't understand how you do this. Why do you still want to be here? And she said, I really think that part of our legacy is how we treat family and how we show up for them, even when it's painful for us. And I was like, okay. And she goes, Sammy, I had this weird impression the other day where she said, Grandpa is taking care of Tristan. And I was like, oh, good for him. I was a little bit there. So I was like, okay. But she goes, I think you and I are supposed to be here for each other. And I don't know why, but that just hit me so hard that day. I'm like, what happens when you're gone? What then? And she said, I'll still be here. And I think that's Grandma's real legacy. Some of us don't have specific memories of Grandma, But she's there. She was that grandma who was just there. And honestly, I really do think grandma's legacy was really simple. She loved very deeply.
And my story kind of goes along with kind of what everybody said already, and it's about how loving Grandma was. I am really grateful that Grandma spent her last months in Utah because I had so much time to spend with her, and me and PJ got to watch her for a few days while Tito Eddie and Tito Belinda went to the Philippines. And so by this point, she's, already declining, and she's not completely with it. Still with it. She's still asleep. And, a lot of you know she would take these walks around the house, take these laps around the house, and a lot of you know that I'm very clumsy, and that's something I will never grow out of. And so I was going with her on a lap around the house, and she was very strong. Even her last day, she was strong. And I feel so bad. We were walking around the house, and she started to stumble, and I was like, oh no. I couldn't catch my footing, and she took me down with her. On her cheek, but I felt so guilty. I felt so guilty. And so I took her back to her room, and I felt so bad that I started to cry. and I was crying pretty hard. And I remember Grandma, she's not saying that much, but what she said, kind of similar to Tito Stan, she said, come here, baby. And she gave me a big hug, and she said, I love you. And that meant so much to me, and it just kind of shows, even when she's not completely lucid, how much that was so much a part of her, just how much she loved her grandkids, her children, her everyone around her. And I'll just always remember that. She was so sweet. She could have been so mad, but she just said, I love you.
I learned a lot of how to be confident through her, and by how she carried herself, and just watching her perform, it made her so happy. Dancing, and she was just, you could see it all over her face that she was just like into herself. She knew that she was good, and she just loved, showing that off. And I thought that was so cool. I remember, laughing because you know what I'm talking about. But I remember going with her to dance, hers and Grandpa's dance lessons, and I was really little, and I remember I was always so excited to go because they had these cool little coloring books that changed colors and stickers, and that's really like what I mostly focused on when I went because I was a little kid. But I remember looking up every now and then thinking, I want to be like that. Man, she is so good at that, Just like a little girl looking at this magical princess dancing and just being so happy doing it. It was probably from that point that I noticed that I began to see Grandma for that, just that confident, beautiful soul. Another thing about Grandma, she never judged me. I know everybody in this room knows that I've had a real hard last 10 years. Really, really tough. Real tough. And so, it's no secret. But one thing I can say is that Grandma, not that anybody's been judgmental or anything like that, but Grandma always would just take me and sit me down and be like, so, what's the scoop? Who's your boyfriend for this week? She would sit there and ask me funny questions, but she was really serious. She really wanted to know. And she would sit there and just, talk to me about things and I would nothing that you can say that will surprise me. And that made me feel so loved. It made me feel so loved because it didn't matter what I did, it didn't matter what I said. She always was in my corner, and she always had my back. And she always had some words of wisdom to give to me, and it helped me get it back up. Every single time, every single time, like I had a really, really bad night or whatever, I would call Grandma. Grandma was one of my best friends. Like, legit best friend. I mean, she was my buddy. Sometimes she would actually, like, joking, be like, hey, let's go party. Like, she was just that kind of person. She was very, very put together, but she also had a wild side. We clicked on that part. What else was I going to say? I like what my mom said about her being goofy, because she was very goofy. And she would always do stuff like, that would be weird to other people, but to us it was like so funny. One of those things, and I didn't know if I should say this out loud because it's kind of weird, but it's funny. Whenever we were little, I'm sure all the grandkids can vouch for this, but she was, like I said, she was a very confident person. And, we'd be taking a shower at nighttime, like about, time to get ready for bed. And I would hear something in the background going, Ted. I look over, my grandma's like stripping down. She's dancing while she's doing it. And she took showers with us, and we're kind of a little too old for that. But, I mean, it wasn't a weird thing. Like, it was like a bonding thing. And we bonded over that. We would sing songs in the shower, and it was fun. I remember that of Grandma. It was one of my favorite memories of her. I know that's weird, but it's one of my favorite memories. Just to wrap it up real quick, I know I'm taking a long time, but another thing is, like a little bit going off of what I said before, but I could go literally sit down and Grandma would just want to just be with me. And she would be like, hey, I had a really hard day today, Janelle, and I'm so happy that you're here. Can you just sit with me? And sometimes I would just sit with her. And it was just as healing for me as it was for her to just have that. And there were a lot of times that she told me that. She said, I think that we saved each other. I think we kind of saved each other, because I'm so lonely sometimes, and I have hard times, and every time you come and visit me, you make me so happy. And I'm like, and she goes, and I kind of saved you because you're okay. Like, you're still here, you're still alive. So those are just a few thoughts that I got off the top of my head. I could go on and on, but she was my best friend, at least in the top 5. And there's a lot of y'all out there. She was up there, and she's gonna be missed.
So I have a couple of funny stories about Grandma. One of them was when I was younger. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry laughing instead of hormones. So when I was probably like 9 years old, I didn't know Grandma very well. I was closer to Grandpa growing up. But Grandma, she came up to me and she was singing in the kitchen, and I was with her in the kitchen, and she pulls a piece of chocolate out of her purse. And she looks at me and she goes, and she sticks it in her mouth. And I didn't realize that it was like a half a piece of eaten chocolate that was like unwrapped in her purse. And at the time I'm just thinking, ooh, chocolate. So she puts it in her mouth and I eat it and I go, and it was the grossest piece of candy I've ever had in my whole life. It tasted like it had been in a makeup bag or something. And I just remember thinking, then I obviously knew her, but I got to know her really well because I was over at my parents' house almost every day. And I'm kind of a jokester, and I'm also kind of known as the blunt one in the family. And Grandma, she's kind of complained a lot, and I was helping her up the stairs because she didn't know how to go up there by herself, and she's she was crying. She didn't want to go up the stairs. And I go, "Come on, Grandma, chop chop." You're taking too long. She just sat there. She goes, and then she just started laughing. And then from then on, every time she saw me, she'd go, "Chop chop." Two of the things that Grandma was probably the most excited when I told her that I was pregnant, but she was only excited if it was going to be a girl. And so every single day I would see her, she'd go. And the way that she would greet me every time I saw her, she was always in bed watching Netflix. I'd come into her room and say, "Hey, Grandma," and she would pause the show and say, "Oh, good, you're here to do my hair." Make me look pretty. Because she did not like to do her hair, but she loved to get her hair done. So Janelle and I switched off probably 3 or 4 times a week, washing her hair and blow drying it for her. And every time she'd always say, "I'm so pretty." So that was how she always greeted me every time I saw her was, "Oh, good, you're here to make me pretty." And then of course we talked about, she would always ask me, she would always tell me, "You're going to give me a granddaughter." And I always tell her, I'm pretty sure it's a boy. I just have this feeling it's a boy. And so every day she would greet me and say, "You're going to make me look pretty." And the way that she would say goodbye to me was she would point to me and say, "XX." And so I have this text from her. I lost it. It was one of the last ones she sent me. So another thing that grandma for some reason, I think she thought that I lived at my parents because she would always text me things like, "Please bring me some water." So I texted her. The last text I sent her was, "Grandma, guess what?" And she said, "Hey, girl." "Jenna, it's a girl, right? Jenna!" And all I typed was XX, smiley face, and she said, "Yay." But that was the last thing she texted me, and I just thought it was funny. The way that she greeted me was always funny because she always was excited that I was there to make her look pretty, and the way she said bye to me was always so funny because she always said XX. And anyway, I'm really grateful this last year I got to know her really well, and I feel like I became really good buddies with her because before then I wasn't as close with her. And I genuinely felt like I was friends with her this year. I would, like Janelle said, legitimately go and hang out with her and just sit with her and talk with her. And she would say, "Tell me a story." And I didn't have any good stories. My life was so boring compared to hers. And she'd always tell me to sing her songs or dance for her. And I'm a horrible dancer, but I still danced for her. And she just thought it was so funny because I'm so recording. But anyway, like I said, just really grateful that I was able to spend so much time with her this last year and truly get to know who she was. And say these things in Jesus Christ. I'm just kidding. If y'all ever went to our old house, you know that we had a guest room next to my room, and there was like a jack in the bathroom that connected the 2 rooms together. So I shared a bathroom with Grandma. Then after a while, I was like, "Grandma, you need to stop walking me to the bathroom." And she was like, "I don't walk you out, you knock me out." And I was like, "No, you knock me out." She was like, "That's it, I'll start keeping score." So we made a little chart on the mirror, and whoever walked each other out, we would keep tally And then she'd be like, let's go watch a movie. And I was like, okay. And she would put on these weird medieval movies. Really, really weird. But, and I just remember she never knew how to work the iPhone. She'd always ask me how to do the GIFs. And she'd be like, I can't hear you. We're singing with the TV. And I just remember she wanted to send something funny to, I don't know, I think it was Emily. She was like, I want to send a funny dancing one. And it was Tina from Bob's Burgers twerking, and Grandma thought it was the funniest thing. I just remember she was cracking up laughing at it so hard. It was just so funny memories of Grandma. We got really close whenever she looked at us. So.
I have a lot of thoughts, and gosh, I hope these come out kind of coherent. Just trying to keep it all together. But my interactions with Ceres were actually prior to any of the grand. Actually, prior to Eddie and Emily. I'm sorry, David and Emily getting married. That's when the majority of my interactions occurred with Ceres, and I noticed something that maybe none of you have seen, and that is she wasn't really any different from the time before she joined the church to the time afterwards. She was already different from any other Filipino mom that I had ever met. Most Filipino moms I know had a very, they were quiet. I'm not sure how much a lot of moms communicated to their kids. My mom did, and she just told you, this is the way it has to be, this is the way our family does it, and I don't know that there was a lot of input from children. Children didn't really act. But Ceres was different, and I knew that already. When I first met her in 1976, I could already see that she was different from most of the moms that I knew, in that she was very gushing, lovey. I'm not sure, but there's a word for that. Mushy, yeah, mushy. I remember one time she came home from work, and then Eddie Sr. came home, and then I remembered they had a moment where they just hugged, and then I think he took her into this big dip, and then she said, "Is that too mushy, Jose? What do you think?" You know, and I have to admit, I had never seen that kind of really emotional love outside of the movies, but it was real. And that was kind of eye-opening to me, because I had not yet gotten in touch with my emotions that way, and my parents aren't really that way. I noticed when I talked to her, I was only in 6th grade at the time, but she would talk to me like an adult. And I didn't know for sure if she actually talked to other people that way, but I felt so much respect for her. And I remember feeling very, I don't know what the word is, but I thanked her for that kind of respect that she gave to a younger person. She didn't treat me as, you know, I'm over you, I'm older than you, I'm over it. She treated me as a person, even though I was only a 6th grader. The only time I think she ever got a little bit strict at that age was, forgive me if I have to go here, but we used to go to, there were 4 of us older kids who we would play 2-on-2 football. And it was, maybe 3-on-3 actually. And it was me and Chris Carante, Fred Carante, Eddie, my brother, and we needed someone else. So we'd have to pick up Joy. Joy, you gotta play, you know. And Joy would be always on my team because she was the youngest and I was the oldest. So to balance it out, Joy had to play. I had to be the sixth person, and then she'd have to be on my team because I could dodge behind the line of scrimmage for a really long time and wait till she got open, and then I could throw her the ball and she would catch the ball. And then this was just a very, very short period of time. But the moment I think that she saw that I might be remotely interested in Joy as a crush, she shut it down very quickly. And she didn't tell me, she told Joy, no, Jose can't come inside the house. Joy was only in 3rd grade at the time. I was in 6th grade. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's making her I didn't do anything. That's the only time I saw sternness. Later on, we would have these, the Filipinos would get together. And back then, the only thing I can relate it to, if you can follow me here with me here for a minute, is the Filipino community kind of operates like a ward. It's your family away from family. So they enjoy all the holidays together. Each other's birthdays, each other's graduation parties. And we would get together and Eddie and Ceres, for some reason, would always want to be the ones to lead the dancing. And most Filipinos aren't as that flamboyant or bold in their dancing, but they wanted to. And I remember that being a little bit different, that they were that creative and they were not afraid to perform in front of a lot of people. They were very different in that way. And a lot of that, I remember being surprised, one, that Eddie Sr. was that way, but I was very surprised that Ceres was also that way too, because that wasn't usual for a Filipino female. And I remember thinking to myself that she is a special person because she is not bound by her culture. She's really being herself and not worried that much about what other people think. And throughout our lives, there was always that poise, that elegance. And it was only later that Eddie Sr. would tell me, this was now, several years down the road, and we're interacting with one another, and he says to me, he goes, you know, man, I got so lucky because your Tita Ceres is so smart, and she is so patient. Do you know that she's actually not practicing in her profession? She made a sacrifice. She is actually a geneticist, but she chose to be a pediatrician because that's what you can practice here. But what she really is she's a university geneticist. She should really be in that atmosphere. But she sacrificed for me so that I can pursue my career. And that's why they were in Port Arthur. Over the next several years, I saw her. She always sacrificed her career in sacrifice for his career. I remember when she joined the church, Eddie Sr. changed. Eddie Jr. changed. They are kind of the primary reasons why I took notice that, man, maybe I should really, they've made it work. It really has an influencing power on them. But Ceres was the same. It was the same to her before and after the church because it already fit her. She was already that way. She was confident as a woman, but she was also, she loved being a spouse, a wife, a mother. She was already that way. And I remember later on as the years started to go by and the kids got older, she would never stop gushing about her kids. I remember, I can talk the gospel and philosophy all day with Eddie Sr. That's why Eddie Sr. and I get along, because I love to talk about the weighty topics. I love to talk about philosophy. With Ceres, all she wants to talk about is the kids. and what they do, and what she loves about each of them. And I remember thinking to myself that, wow, what a perfect compliment she is. Because I know that she's more organized than any senior. And then as later on I come to find out that most wives and mothers are more organized than their husbands. She was the first person I saw to be that way. And when they joined the church, and I saw this big, I knew about the church before Eddie Sr. and Ceres. I knew about it in the summer of 1983. I saw, when I came back home from college in 84, I saw them go through a Pentecostal phase that they were introduced to by their housekeeper, Joyce. Then I later saw them go through the Mormon phase. And I remember the night when Eddie Sr. told me the story about how Ceres had started to recite the Apostles' Creed, and instead of saying, I believe in the Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, she said, I believe in the Holy Mormon Church. And he said that was a turning point for their family. And I did not know that about her at that time, that she was very in tune with the Spirit, and Eddie Sr. respected her experiences with the Spirit to help guide the family. Because he was more very doctrine-oriented, but she was really, truly in touch with the Spirit. And she didn't boast about it. She still kept she loved her role in being a supportive spouse. Never tried to take away Eddie Sr.'s head of household responsibility and pride. When the time came that, fast forward a little bit, later that summer I did join the church, and I knew that they were going out on a limb. And I knew that if I joined the church, they were going to shoulder some blame. And they did. And one of the side effects of me joining the church was that the Filipino community started to shun them. So they started to lose all their friends. But the great thing about that was it didn't bother them. They embraced their new culture, the Mormon culture. And they were already busy enough as it is. They actually didn't need to see all their old friends. I know it hurt them a little bit. I knew they were going out on a limb for me, but that's how much they believed in the gospel. They knew that the criticism that they would weather from the world was worth saving one soul. And I think they knew that I was probably closer than a lot of people to understanding the truth, and they probably knew that I would probably need just a little bit of support to continue to move forward and progress. And then I had agreed with my parents after I got baptized that I would no longer, I would not go to church, and that I would actually transfer away from A&M and go to a Catholic Jesuit school to give the Catholic Church a second try. When I 3 semesters later, I decided I had to start going back to church. And, as part of the agreement to transfer away from A&M, my dad talked to Eddie Sr. and said, I don't want you, please promise me that you will not talk to my son during this time, because he needs time alone from any kid. He doesn't need you to tell him things. And they honored that. Eddie Sr. and Ceres honored that. I came back to them 3 semesters later and said, you know what, I think I'm going to go back to church. And he said, you know, Jose, we are there for you if you need help. And without saying so, I knew that Ceres was also on board with that too. Meanwhile, during that time period, Chris had already started on mission, and he was in the mission field, and now Fred was getting prepared. Had joined the church already about 7-8 months earlier, and now was preparing to go on a mission. And I thought to myself, you know, I need to, I think I'm going to go on a mission too. And that did not deter them. When I got my mission call, finally, 6-7 months later, and my parents asked me to leave the house. Eddie and Ceres took me in, and I'm sure that was a little bit difficult for them, only because, me and Fred were both in the house at the same time. We're different. We didn't grow up in a spiritual way. We're bringing in habits from our families into their household and trying our best to conform. Not to mention the financial responsibility of going out on the mission field and them kind of being dads and moms. But their hearts were that big that they were willing to take on that responsibility. And when I came back from the mission field, that was kind of it after that. I didn't talk to Ceres as much after that. Rather, actually, I only saw her only at the family occasions when there would be a milestone in any one of the kids' lives. One of the kids getting married or one of the grandkids being born. But me and Eddie Sr. would continue to talk. But even then, through the rest of their lives, I knew that Ceres was always being the supportive spouse and just embracing church life, taking on the occasional calling here and then. But that's really all I had to say, other than the last story. The last significant one was when I came to see for the graduation, my son's BYU graduation in April. Eddie said to go ahead and come and visit because I wasn't sure if it would be a good idea or not. Some people don't like to be seen when they're not at full health. But he said, no, come Jose, come visit my mom. When I came in, she kind of spoke only in Tagalog. And she did not remember me by my given name, Jose. She remembered me by my Filipino nickname, Joel. Joel is Jose Alberto, but to the Filipinos, I'm known as Joel. And that's how far back she had remembered. We had not used that nickname in several years. Later on, as we got older, that nickname kind of went away. Everybody called me Jose. And I was glad that she remembered that. She remembered me as one of her own. I know that she knew that the majority of the interaction was between me and Eddie Sr. because we always were having to catch up and talk about a lot of things because his time with me was very short compared to the time that he had for his kids and Fred and Chris. But he had so much that he had to download to me in order to get me going because my path was a little bit more independent. And Ceres was his supportive spouse along the way. Was always very helpful. But that's all I really had to say. 3 minutes. Thank you.
So, even though I'm not a grandkid, I just wanted to, I don't know if y'all knew this, but I had some memories of Ceres. I don't have many memories of her in the past 20 years. All the memories I have of Ceres were when I was about 7, 8, 9 years old. And it was during the time when, shortly after Stan got married, and right around the time that David got married, during that time. And the Espiritu house was the only house that I ever saw that would have people take off their shoes. And I remember going there, and I had worn shoes, I would have taken them off. As I got in there. And I looked around, and everything was white. All the carpet was white, the couches were white, and as soon as you walk in, you see this huge painting of this picture of Jesus Christ. And I thought, wow, I was a little 7 or 8-year-old, man, that's quite the statement there. And everybody who walks in, you see Jesus, and I'm like, well, that's not going to do anything wrong here. So maybe we're going to do anything wrong. But I remember walking in, I was probably a dirty kid. You know, these pack of kids running around, you know, we're 11. And you get dirty, you know, you shower once every week or so. And I remember Ceres, I remember the roses. I had a few of those too, but after they were on the cake. So I do remember, I told Lynn before, I was like, yeah, she was a good, she made these little roses. They were very crunchy. And then he told the story about the roses. But I remember, and
And I remember also coming there, there's this huge feast, okay, all this strange food I've never eaten before, from the ocean, and lots of strange seafoods and everything. But there was a big bowl of potatoes for the Packers. And you had the rice, for sure, lots of rice, and you had potatoes too. And I remember someone saying, yeah, you got the rice for the Filipinos, and you have the potatoes for the Packers. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I remember thinking that as a little kid. And then what was kind of neat is that me and my very little self, probably greasy hair and everything, I got tired. And I remember Ceres, she had me laid down on a white couch. Okay, she said, "Oh, that Michael." And she always remembered my name, Michael. My dad didn't even know who it was. Ceres remembered that I was Michael. And she laid me down on her beautiful white couch. And she got me a blanket, a pillow, and totally small memory, but totally gave me a nap, all probably dirty and everything on a beautiful couch there, white food and everything. Yeah, I just wanted to share that with us. This week of memory I had of Ceres.
Okay. Thank you so much for those of you who shared. So we're going to have, I felt prompted to add one last thing before we have a slideshow. But let me preface the slideshow real quick. Aaron created this for us a few days after Grandma passed. And you know how Erin is in videos and stuff. She'll take hours and hours and hours trying to make everything just right. But she's doing summer sales in Houston, and she's trying to throw this one together for a memorial that they had in Port Arthur a few weeks ago. So I think everyone in this room is in here for like half a second. You'll see it, but it's not Erin's best work. But this is something she put together. But here's what I wanted to add, and I felt prompted to do this before we do this break. One of my favorite songs growing up, and something I feel my mom would like to sing right now. We want to ask Dan to come up and sing "I Heard Him Come." And it was just something that strong memory from us, a kid, and my mom loved it to hear Dan sing. So I'd like him to do that, and then if he would, and or Allison can do it for you. And then we'll do the slideshow, and then I know that my Redeemer lives, and Blake's going to get it for me.
Okay. I hope I can remember.
I heard him come, I saw his very face, I wondered who would come into this place, where dead men walk, and where the dying talk of life before the curse upon them came. He looked on me, he must have felt my gaze. He came toward me through the crowded maze, and I, a leper, in shame hid my head, till someone said, Jesus is his name. And they said, nations fall behind him, the rivers crawl to find him, mountains move just to let him through. Commands never leave him, just believe, and never let his light go. Never let your love grow dim.
Grandma, what did you just tell me?
Did you just tell me that you're going to haunt your sister after you're dead?
What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
That's slowly amazing.
wonderful time that we have come together as friends and family, and with this opportunity that we've had to be able to remember Grandma Ceres. I'm grateful, Father, for the wonderful example she is of a mother, a grandmother, a friend, a wife, and so much more. I'm grateful, Father, for the wonderful example she is of greatness, service, of selflessness, and of love. Father, we're grateful for all the wonderful memories that we have of her, and we ask that you please bless us to be able to continue her legacy and carry on those things that we remember and which we have learned from her in our hearts. We're grateful, Father, for the gospel in our lives and for the knowledge that we have of the plan of salvation. We're grateful for my Son Jesus Christ and his life and ministry and perfect example, his atoning sacrifice, which makes that plan possible. Father, we love you very much, and we're grateful for all that we have. And we say these things in thy Son Jesus Christ. Amen.
Don't leave yet, we're gonna take out your picture. Okay, over.
Can I say something before the picture? Hey, listen, in the spirit of in the tradition of Ceres, there's an abundance of food. She always has an abundance of food. So for you young ladies who